All right. So as I said earlier, my name is Daniel Meyer. I've been writing online for the past 7 years under the username Deus Kane. Mostly writing poetry. I do a little bit of short stories, flash fiction, topical pieces, and things like that. So, in my 7 or so years of writing, I have really gotten to have a lot of fun with words. And the more I learned about them, the more I studied up, the more I realized there's some really interesting words out there. Some of them, like love, can be a little bit broad. Others are really narrow, really defined, and very unusual. Things we don't usually run across in day-to-day conversations. So, the set I prepared for you folks tonight is going to include a couple pieces built around words and phrases I've come across online that are interesting. I'm going to start you off with a piece with a French phrase that, the way it was presented to me, there is no corresponding English expression that matches this. The French expression is l'esprit d'escalier, or literally translated, the spirit of the staircase. Now this describes that feeling we have when we leave a conversation and we think about all the things we could have or should have said. It's not quite regret, it's not really sadness, it's just thoughtfulness. So here's my piece on the spirit of the staircase. The bitter words and screams and shouts as they laid their grievances out echoed off the very walls, echoed down the empty halls. Their clamor shook the wooden beams, tempers whistling through the seams. Their words and tempers were so crass, they nearly cracked the window's glass. They left no hurtful words unsaid, favoring their pride instead, as they tried to save face, as they tried to leave that place. Now the house stands cold and bleak, quiet but for every creak of one who walks with teary eyes, for kindnesses unrealized. And that's the spirit of the staircase. Thank you. So the next piece I'm going to read is a word I found on a website called The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. And with a name like that, is it any surprise that it's a Tumblr website? Anyway, this was a site that, again, rare words, unusual things, all of them themed around sorrow, sadness, things like that. So I found this word on there called sonder. Sounds a lot like somber, but it's spelled with a different letter. It's an N instead of an M. And what sonder describes is the realization that everyone we meet, every one of you out there, is living a life that is as rich, complex, and meaningful as our own. Now the curiosity is why a word like that everybody's basically like you, is on a site called the Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows. You see, I like to liken the word sonder to the realization that we as an individual are not special. We might be the hero of our own story, but so is everybody else. So this is my piece on the word sonder. Behind each and every face hides a quiet, secret place of happiness and sorrows, dreams of yesterdays and tomorrows, which we pass by unaware with our protagonistic airs. But ours is not the only story, nor ours the only dreams of glory. Each and every blessed day we pass by heroes on their way, to slay dragons, to right wrongs, each champion of their own songs. And that's Sonder. Thank you. So this next piece is a little bit interesting. I found this word to use as a title for a poem, and when I looked it up, I realized I don't know how to spell this word. In fact, I had this word completely wrong. The title of the next piece is sibilant. And it is a word. Google tells you. In fact, I looked it up tonight just to double check. Google will point you towards sibilant. And as soon as you look up the definition, it points you to another word, which is what I thought sibilant meant. See, I thought sibilant was that way that people talk sometimes, where they put a little bit extra S in there, and it sounds like a snake. That's not sibilant, though. That's sibilant. Sibilant is the word I was looking for. However, that means sibilant is free for a definition, and it is a word I'd like to make a word, because why not? It's fun. So, sibilant, as opposed to sibilant, strikes me as a little bit sinister, a little bit dark. Sounds like a little bit like a lesson plan. Like the devil's got a book, and he's like, yeah, you got algebra coming up for you. But, so I took that little misunderstanding, as well as my interpretation of what I thought the word meant, and I put together a little bit of poem about that. A quiet, hissing lesson plan, something dark and sinister. And this is sibilant. I'll teach you to fear the night, to creep at the edge of the light, and how your little street lamps won't keep you safe. I'll teach you how loud the silence is, how the weight of it rings like an old, rotten bell you're terrified of breaking. I'll teach you how full the shadows are and show you an army of monsters that hide beyond the corners of your eyes, hungry for a sign of weakness. I'll teach you about real power, with the snapping of a stick, barely as long as your hand makes you jump a mile. I'll teach you about terror, and then sit back to enjoy the show as you destroy yourself from the inside out. And that's sibilant. So, I have one last piece to read tonight, and unlike the rest of my pieces, I like to give the meaning for this particular poem after I read it. So I'm going to read through it once and then explain it. So, the title of this particular poem is called Polyandrium. Those brave and strong, lauded in story and song, who pierced through the night with the force of their might. Polyandrium. Those gentle and kind, strong in heart and in mind, who led others toward tomorrow and overcame each and every sorrow. Polyandrium. Those noble and proud, who shirked not the shroud, who knew the cost for all their deeds, who knew where the path of a hero leads. Polyandrium. Those who stand upright today, who strive to find a better way, who know full well that they may fall, but even still they risk it all. Polyandrium. I know now that the stories are true, that heroes live within each of you, and you need not fear a shallow grave. Glory waits upon the brave. Polyandrium. So what's that mean? Well, fun story. I found that word while looking for a synonym for the word garden. And as a side note, there is none. A garden is a garden is a garden. You can have a greenhouse, you can have an arborarium, but there is only one bloody word in the English language that frickin' means garden. Garden. Anyway, the word polyandrium draws its roots from Greek. The word poly, meaning many, and andrium, which has the same root word as android, man. So how the heck do you get to that from garden? Well, while garden is the only word that means garden, garden is not the only thing that garden means. You see, garden is also a synonym for graveyard, which brings me back to polyandrium, the resting place for many men. More specifically, for men who've died in battle. You see, a polyandrium is a graveyard for heroes. And that being said, this is the part where I'd like to reread this piece for you. Not only for emphasis and effect, but also for remembrance and as a reminder. Those brave and strong, lauded in story and song, who pierced through the night with the force of their might. Polyandrium. Those gentle and kind, strong in heart and in mind, who lead others toward tomorrow and overcame each and every sorrow. Polyandrium. Those noble and proud, who shirked not the shroud, who knew the cost for all their deeds, who knew where the path of a hero leads. Polyandrium. Those who stand upright today, who strive to find a better way, who know full well that they may fall, but even still they risk it all. Polyandrium. I know now that the stories are true, that heroes live within each of you, and you need not fear a shallow grave, for glory waits upon the brave. In the Polyandrium. Thank you. So that's my set for tonight. Again, my name is Daniel Meyer. I'm online as Deus Cain. Give me a read sometime if you're interested. Thank you. Have a good rest of your night, folks.